Hey guys, you're listening to episode 35 of the True Voyage Soundcast, and I'm Natasha Che. My goal in this soundcast is to help you tap into your intuitive connection with your higher self to find more clarity and purpose in your life in order to live a juicier, more expanded life. And I want to thank you for making this soundcast a part of your weekly routine. A lot of you wrote to me and tell me, this is really your weekly inner growth ritual and you look forward to every new episode every week. And I want to let you know that I look forward to creating new episodes every week also, because I really enjoy hanging out with my listeners, hanging out with you, even though this is asynchronous. I want you to know that, you are really a blessing in my life, and I am so grateful for it. And you have made a difference on my life, and whether you know it or not. And I feel grateful that I have the privilege to make a difference in your life also. So today I want to talk about, how do you know if your intuition is real? And I was inspired to talk about this because I got an email this week from Lena, who have signed up and taken my Power Mornings course. And Lena says, I love your Power Mornings course. I'm already feeling so much more energized and productive. I'm doing your Clarity Finder exercise to connect with my higher self, but I don't know if I'm doing it right. How do I know the information I get is real? So for background, for those of you who have not taken the course, in the Power Mornings course, I laid out a very straightforward, simple approach to establish that direct connection with your higher self on a daily basis. So Lena has done this practice that I laid out in the course, and now she's, wondering whether the information she gets is the real deal. So whether you've taken the course or not, I think this is a pretty common question. Are you just making shit up? Or is it some kind of something substantial? It really comes from divine download. So, there are two ways to tackle this question, two perspectives, okay? And I will tell you both in this episode. And I will tell you first perspective I will tell you is more of a mind-based approach. I can tell you, maybe 3, 4, 5 ways that you can make a assessment of whether the information you're getting is of high quality or not. So that is the mind-based approach. Directly answer this question for you. Yep. And the second approach is, I would say, a more advanced approach, which is not for everybody. Okay. I know a lot of people are not ready to hear this. However, I want to present it to you because I know that whether you are ready to take on this information to practice this or not, this is good. It's good to, even just stretch yourself a little bit. Even if you're not ready for this right now, it's always good to step out of your comfort zone a little bit. It's really, that's the only thing that helps your growth is to, helps anybody's growth is to step outside of our comfort zone. But I can tell you the second more advanced perspective that I'm going to share with you in today's episode, if you get it, okay, and if you get it and you actually put it into practice, I promise you will never, ever have this question come up again. You would never have to wonder about whether the intuition that you're getting is real or not. So, does that sound good? Don't you want to know what that is? Okay, I know you're saying, Natasha, come on, stop making this a suspense, okay? Just give it to me. So I will, don't worry, okay? And in the end, if you want to take this further, I'll also tell you how you can do that. So let's jump right in. So the first approach I want to tell you is these are a few ways that you can assess. These are a few signs if you will, that can tell you whether the information you're getting is the real deal or not. And I also talked about this in the previous episode. It's episode 22. So if you haven't listened to episode 22, I encourage you to go back to listen to that one, where I answered a similar question from, sort of a similar angle. So the number one thing I can tell you is, look for whether that information you're getting sounds surprising to you. Because, all of us have a gazillion random mind chatters every day, right? There are all these stories and beliefs that we are telling ourselves. And you're familiar with that because you're with you all the time. You're getting that from yourself all the time. So, but if a message that you're getting is surprising, it doesn't have to be like a absolute shock, right? But if it's something that makes you stop in your track and wonder, that's kind of, unexpected, that is a sign that it's a message that you should pay attention to. So that's number one, okay? Does it sound a little bit surprising? That's something that you haven't thought about before. The second sign is, does it feel like a epiphany? Does it produce this aha feeling in you? Now, this is something that's very hard to describe, that, what exactly is a aha? But I hope you've had the experience before, so I'm not like really, talking to the ether right now. I hope you have some reference that you can grab onto to know what I mean by an aha moment, a epiphany. So to me, that is really, something, a piece of realization, a piece of insight that produces a instant shift in consciousness. That's my definition of a epiphany. A insight that produces a instant shift of consciousness in you. So when you get that type of information, when you realize, suddenly it seems like your thinking, your state kind of just shifted into a different gear. Even just changed a little, that you notice that difference, that you're not thinking the same, you're not feeling the same after you get that piece of, insight. That is an epiphany. And whenever you get that kind of, message, always, worth paying attention to. So that's the second thing. And the third thing is it triggers a emotional release. That is a sign that you are on the right track, my friend. So I'll give an example, okay? So many years ago, when I was still in graduate school, I was not happy with my life. I was in a relationship that I was not happy about, and I was feeling directionless, and I was not making progress on my PhD dissertation. I was just, nothing was working, it seems like, in my life. So it was really, really a depressing period. And I remember one day, I was going home from school, from the university. So I needed to take a bus every day to, to transport myself from between home and university. So I got on the bus, and, the bus, drove through the downtown of Washington, D.C., and there was this moment that I looked out of the bus window and I saw this sunset. Okay, it was just a sunset. Sunset happens every day, no big deal. But for some reason, I got this instant download that it is a sentence with 3 words. And it says, "You are love." So that's the message I got. And I remember my instant response was tears started streaming down my face. I don't know why. I don't know why, but I just suddenly feel like this sweet sadness in me. And this tears just, well up, and I feel like my heart was instantly feeling expanded at that moment. So, looking back, that was actually, that message, that download produced a healing effect in me. That was a emotional release. So that's what I'm talking about. Okay, that's an example of that. So even as I'm speaking of this right now, even as I'm telling you right now this message, you are loved. I can just feel like this. I can just feel this emotion, rises in me. So that's something that to look out for is, does it produce a emotional release? Because as cliche as it goes, truth sets you free, right? So if the message that you're getting is truth, it has a freeing effect. Sometimes it produces this emotional release, and that is freedom. So that's are we on to the third thing? Yes. The fourth thing, which is related. If a message makes you feel like it's freedom, expansion, and peace, it's usually a sign that you are onto something. So because again, when we get this immediate download from the higher self, a lot of times if it's about a question or a conflict, inner conflict that you've been wrangling with for a long time, you've been like living in the prison cell of your mind, struggling with this, and there's a lot of conflicting hesitation about this, especially in those situations. When you get a message that produces this feeling of freedom, that produces this feeling of, I feel like I can breathe again, that is usually a sign that you're getting something that is, at least worth paying attention to. Because oftentimes what it does is, that divine message, it lifts you up, even if just temporarily, out of that hold, out of that strong hold, that bondage of your mind. That is the energetic effect that produces. So that's why you feel like it's peace, it's expansion. So those are the signs, to look out for. And also in episode 22, I talked about more of these, in a similar vein. So you can check out that one also. So these are at the mind level, what to look out for, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's what the mind does. Go down the checklist. check. Okay, we're good to go. So that's the mind level approach to answer this question. Now I want to tell you the more advanced approach. Okay, again, I know not everybody is ready for this, but if you are committed to be open, I think at least this will stretch you and it will be a good thing. So are you ready? Okay, I know you are. So in order to answer this question, I want to ask you something, okay? I want to ask you, when this question comes up, that you start wondering, is this intuition right or not? Am I doing it right? Who is asking that question? Okay, so whenever you have this thought coming up, I'm not sure if this is intuitive information or something else. I'm not sure if I'm doing this right. I want you to take a step back. Okay, ask yourself, who is asking that question? Because your higher self certainly is not asking that question. Okay, your higher self makes up all the rules, the rule makers don't ask about whether the rules are right or not. Okay? The part that is asking that question is your human self, is your mind, is your ego, the part that is identified with this small human of you, right? Who is looking for direction, who's not sure what he's doing, and who's afraid to mess things up. So I just want you to notice, okay, whenever you have that question, what kind of energy does it produce? And just notice where that comes from. Okay? So here is my one sentence response to the question of whether the intuition you're getting is right or not. Okay? And here it is. Your intuition is right when you decide it is. I want to say it again, okay? Because I know this may be confusing, but this is important. Your intuition is right when you decide it is so. Now I know you're saying, hey, Natasha, wait a minute. I thought this whole time we are talking about how to get the, divine download from the higher self, how to receive that message from the higher self. And you're telling me I'm the one to decide? How does that work? I know. So let me unpack this a little bit, okay? Now, I know this whole time we're talking about you communicating with your higher self and your higher self talking back and you're receiving the download from some, who knows like where this divine entity is, the divine source is dispensing these wisdom and these supreme insight. I know it feels like this way because we've been talking that way, but that is the nature of language. That is the nature of human language, is duality. Right? But it's really an artificial distinction. This human self, this higher self, the God versus human. Because, you are part of God. You are higher self. I know you don't. We don't feel that way most of the time, but it is the ultimate truth. Right? So I want you to know, to your higher self, this question does not make sense because your higher self does not have this concept of right or wrong. Because again, it's the creator. It creates everything, and whatever it creates is a supreme work of art. It's the only thing. Every piece of creation is the only piece of creation that is just like that. Right? So how do you judge? How do you judge that one is more right than the other? So imagine, you walk up to Picasso, just finished a painting, and you walked up to him and you ask, hey, Master Picasso, is this the right painting or the wrong painting? Right? To the common eyes, nothing Picasso paints was right, actually. The proportion is not the right proportion. It doesn't look like if he paints a woman, the woman has 3 eyes and the arms and legs are all out of place. So if you're looking at it from just the earthly perspective, nothing is right. Nothing about that painting is right. But if you ask the master, is this the right painting or the wrong painting, what do you think he would say? He'll probably say, I don't know. What do you mean? This question does not make any sense. This is my art. This is my genius, my work. I know it sells for $100 million, but I don't know whether it's right or not. So it's the same deal. It's everything your higher self creates is the highest there is. And it doesn't create subpar work because there is no like outside industry standard setting body that's judging God's work. If you know what I mean, okay? So whenever you're asking that question, is it right? Is that the right information? Notice that you have this underlying assumption in there. I know when you think about the question, is this the right information? We are implying what we are, the unspoken assumption is, if it's right, it will lead to some happily ever after outcome. So I don't know what that picture looks like for you, but for me, for my human self, it looks like happily ever after. Maybe I live in a 5 million mansion in Malibu. I look like Giselle Bundchen, and I'm married to George Clooney. Something like that. Okay, maybe I don't want to be married to George Clooney. He's not my type, but you get what I mean, okay? So a lot of times when we are asking the question, is this the right information? We are expecting some safe, foolproof, happily ever after outcome if we actually act on that piece of information. So in other words, if that information is correct, if I act on it, then I will not be making so-called mistakes. That is usually the underlying human assumption when we are asking that question. But from your higher self's point of view, that doesn't make sense either, because in the book of your higher self, there's no mistakes. It doesn't care about the mistakes by your human standard, because every in the book of your soul, everything that happens to you is for the advancement, for the growth of your soul. And that is the only thing matters to your soul, right? It doesn't have this judgmental system that we humans have when we live on this earth, right? So even if things don't go right by your human standard, even if they go terribly wrong, it's still advancing your growth journey. So in that sense, really, if your mind is sufficiently integrated with your higher self, if a sufficient part of you is identified not with the human but with your higher self, this question does not make sense. This question will not come up. Okay? So because and another way, a little bit different way to look at this, okay? Because I'm trying to explain this to you, is if you think about what is God's superpower, what is the superpower of your higher self? What is the one thing that makes your higher self different from just any other sentient beings? So think about this. And I would say the answer is the ability to make shit up. That is the difference. That is the definition of the creator. The creator. Right? As the story goes, God says, "Let there be light," and there is. Your human self cannot make that happen, right? So that is the definition of the creator. Making shit up. And so really, when you sufficiently integrate with your higher self, you realize that you are the creator of this. You are the one making the call. So that's when you're no longer in the human mindset of, oh my God, I'm taking this next step. Is it a correct one? Is it correct? Or am I gonna mess things up? The human is always living in this kind of subtly, scared space. So then you realize, when you are more integrated with your higher self, really, you are so much. You feel like so much more powerful in your ability to create, in your ability to set standard. So whether you realize it or not, You're doing this all the time already. And we are all doing this all the time. And how do I mean? I'll give an example. I have this friend who's very spiritual, and I remember once we were, walking down the street, and we were going to a store or somewhere, and so she looked down on the ground and she found a feather. Okay. And I thought, feather, okay. If I see a feather on the ground, I'm like, okay, I guess some bird was shedding earlier today. Okay, that's all there is. But she was so excited. And she picked up that feather and she says, I'm so happy whenever I see feathers because it's a sign that my angels are looking after me. They're like leaving these traces behind to remind me that I am being, that they're watching out for me. So I heard that and I was like, oh, that is so sweet. That is that's a delicious story, right? It's a delicious mental system, if you will. But if you really look at this, who says I know I'm going to offend some people with this next thing that I'm going to say. Who made that shit up? Who says that your angels are leaving you messages? Okay, I'm not saying this wrong. This is totally valid, by the way, totally valid, because that is something that she created in collaboration with her higher self. So, to someone else, that doesn't make sense at all, right? Who's to someone else who doesn't have that creation, who haven't created that system in their mind, it doesn't make any sense, right? But for her, it is a confirmation of divine guidance. It is a story that is totally valid for her. And who created a story? The person. She herself created a story in collaboration with her higher self. So it's of the same nature. What I'm telling you is just that, you can create, you can make up any shit you want, basically. So I know some people, we don't like to hear this. Our ego doesn't want to hear this. The human self is not ready for this because it's too adult. It feels like too much responsibility. The human self wants security, wants the structure, wants to be told this is right, this is wrong, so that we know what's the next thing to do. Right? That's what the human self wants to hear. But again, if this sounds like a stretch, if this sounds like something you're like, I'm not sure I am getting this, then, I encourage you, if you feel called to, maybe rewind and re-listen to this, or maybe just let it sit. Okay, let it sit for a bit. And sometimes, when it's all about timing, and when it's the right time, maybe this will resonate with you later. So, but what I want to tell you is, how does that, I want to go down to a more practical level. How is this going to help you in being more integrated to your higher self? I know your human mind is like, I don't trust this. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what she's talking about. But what I can tell you is, when you are more integrated with your higher self, when this question no longer comes up, it's a wonderful thing. It's a beautiful thing, because you realize your life is very simple. Your life becomes very simple because you have one source of truth and one source only. And you always, I wouldn't say you always know, but you know pretty quickly where your North Star is. And you are so much more comfortable doing your work as a creator. I mean, creating anything in your life, not like artistic sense, but, any kind of new things that you want to manifest in your life. You will feel so much more confidence. You will feel so much more trust in yourself, because yourself, I mean your higher self, that is really you. When the separation is no longer there, you realize you are so supremely powerful, and that is a level of confidence no like affirmation or hypnosis or whatever can give you. So and also you won't have so many self conflicts, because self conflicts is a big source of human suffering. Maybe over half, I would say, that we are making our own life difficult is because we have these conflicting messages, conflicting desires inside of us. One side of me wants to go this way, the other side wants to go that way. Am I doing it right? Am I doing it right now? So all these things, it really creates a lot of emotional self-abuse. So but when your mind is more integrated with your higher self, you have less and less of that. You find clarity so much easier. And also, your desires come true. And you suddenly, to everybody else, it seems like you suddenly become this master manifester. Anything you want, it seems to happen quickly and easily, but that's because your desire actually becomes premonitions when you're aligned with your higher self. They become just they're just foreshadowing what's coming up, so to make it look like that you are manifesting things out of thin air, but it's actually not. It's just what you desire is so aligned with the highest truth of your life that you don't wish for things. You no longer wish for things that's not advancing your highest growth. And that's a wonderful space to be. So I know some of you may be thinking, okay, sounds all so good, integrate my mind with my higher self, but how do I do that? Right? So I would say a part of this is definitely grace. I'm not gonna lie, it's I can tell you, okay, I made this happen in my own life, but it's actually not true. I made something happen, but a huge part of it is grace. I think it's just everybody's journey is different, and at the right time, right things happen for you, and that starts to click, and that is, transformations are being done onto you. It's not like you're the driving force of transformation. So a huge part of it, I would say, is grace. But then there's other part of it is really, you've got to be open. You've got to be on the receiving end. You've got to be, you've got to prepare yourself to become this open channel. And my course, the Power Mornings, teaches you one way to do this, which is to open up this contact channel with your higher self on a daily basis. And the more you open up this channel on a regular basis, the easier it is for your mind to be integrated, to be embodied, over time with your higher self, so that you can make decisions and take actions from this position of your higher self more often. And those self-conflicts, those doubts, those, I'm not sure how things are going, those things tend to happen less and less. So that is the approach that has worked for me, and that is the approach that I'm teaching in the Power Mornings course. So if you're interested in that, if you feel called to, you can, go sign up at natashachey.com/morning. So, guys, again, thank you so much for being my weekly companion, for being part of this community. And, I am doing my best to spread the download that I get, to spread a message of light. And I want your help. I need your help. So if you feel called to do this, take a screenshot of wherever you're listening to this soundcast. Maybe post it on Facebook and Instagram and send it to your friend so that we can spread the message of light together. Okay, so that's all for today's True Voyage, and I will see you next time.